Dr. Aris Thorne liked quiet. She liked the hum of the computers in the observatory, the soft click of the mouse, the gentle whir of the cooling systems. She liked the deep ink-black silence of space that pressed against the thick walls of her dome. Aris was an astrophysicist, one of the best. Her mind was a galaxy of complex calculations, theoretical physics, and the cold, hard facts of the cosmos. But beneath the layers of intellect and methodical work, there was a spark, a quiet wonder that had drawn her to the stars since she was a little girl. For weeks, Aris had been sifting through mountains of data from the new generation of deep space telescope. Her focus, a previously unmapped region of the outer arm of the Perseus Spiral Arm, a place so distant, so shrouded in cosmic dust, that it had largely been ignored by previous surveys. Most astronomers focused on the brighter, more accessible regions. But Aris, with her quiet persistence, had a hunch. There was something there, a flicker of an anomaly that her algorithm had flagged. Tonight was different. Tonight, the data streams were clearer. The atmosphere was cooperating. The instruments were perfectly calibrated, and Aris felt a strange energy in the air. She sat hunched over her console, her dark hair pulled back in a loose bun, a pair of oversized glasses perched on her nose. Her fingers danced across the keyboard commands, flying, filters applying, zooming in, refining. "Come on," she murmured to the pixels on her screen. "Show me what you've got." The image that slowly resolved itself was unlike anything she had ever seen. At first, it was just a smudge, a faint cloud of gas and dust. But as Aris applied more processing power, enhancing the contrast and cutting through the interstellar noise, the smudge began to bloom. It wasn't just a cloud. It was a vast, intricate structure, glowing with an internal light. Her breath hitched. She leaned closer, her eyes wide, forgetting the usual scientific detachment. This wasn't just a faint anomaly. It was enormous and stunningly beautiful. Nebulae were common. Vast, stellar nurseries where stars were born and died. But this one was different. It pulsed with a vibrant, otherworldly light. Streaks of fiery red and electric blue twisted and swirled, interspersed with pockets of deep velvety purple and shimmering gold. It looked like a cosmic painting brushed with starlight and interstellar gas. Tendrils of glowing gas stretched outwards like arms reaching across the void, catching the light of unseen stars. Within its swirling heart, she could just make out the bright pinpricks of newly formed stars, tiny diamonds, against a backdrop of cosmic silk. Aris felt a jolt of pure exhilaration. Her heart pounded in her chest, a rhythm that echoed the silent ballet unfolding on her screen. This wasn't just a new discovery. It was a significant discovery. Its size alone was staggering, dwarfing many known nebulae. Its intricate structure hinted at complex stellar processes she couldn't yet begin to fathom. She checked the coordinates across, referenced the data with existing star charts. Nothing, absolutely nothing, in any catalog. This was Vertin territory, a cosmic blank canvas. A small, delighted gasp escaped her lips. "Impossible," she whispered, her voice barely audible in the quiet room. "Absolutely impossible." But it was there, undeniable, blazing on her screen. She double-checked every parameter, every filter. She ran diagnostic tests on the telescope, on the data pipeline, on her own analytical software. Everything came back green, flawless. This wasn't an error. This was real. The nebula continued to mesmerize her, its colors shifting, its structure revealing new complexities with every pixel she brought into focus. It felt alive, a vibrant, breathing entity in the cold vacuum of space. She imagined the light from those distant stars traveling for thousands of years, finally reaching her telescope, finally revealing this hidden wonder. Aris leaned back in her chair, a wide, awestruck smile spreading across her face. Her hands, usually so busy, were still. She just stared at the screen, letting the sheer magnitude of the discovery wash over her. It was moments like these that made all the long hours, the complex calculations, the lonely nights worth it. This was why she became an astrophysicist. To see the unseen, to understand the unknowable, to witness the breathtaking artistry of the universe. The first rays of dawn began to peek over the horizon, painting the sky outside her observatory dome in hues of pink and orange. But Aris didn't notice. Her world was still bathed in the fiery reds and electric blues of her new magnificent discovery. She knew with absolute certainty that her life, and perhaps the understanding of the universe, had just taken a profound and beautiful turn. The quiet genius had just found her masterpiece. And it was only the beginning. The days that followed Aris's initial discovery were a blur of intense activity. Sleep became a luxury she couldn't afford, fueled by lukewarm coffee and the adrenaline of scientific breakthrough. She worked around the clock, analyzing, cross-referencing, and generating preliminary reports. Her colleagues, initially skeptical of her hunch, quickly became equally captivated when she shared the raw data and high-resolution images. Dr. Thorne, her supervisor, Dr. Ramirez, had said, peering at the projected image of the nebula with a mixture of awe and disbelief, "This is monumental. Are you absolutely certain about its scale?" Aris had nodded, pointing to the precise measurements on the screen. "Confirmed by multiple data sets, Dr. Ramirez. It's easily one of the largest structures of its type ever observed in this region. And its internal activity, it's a stellar nursery on an unprecedented scale." Indeed, the more Aris delved into the specifics, the more astonishing the nebula became. Core of vibrant tempest of superheated hydrogen and helium, glowed with an intensity that spoke of countless stars in various stages of formation. Blue-white giants, still in their infancy, blazed like cosmic beacons, their powerful stellar winds carving intricate patterns into the surrounding gas. Younger, smaller stars, red dwarfs, and nascent yellow suns speckled the outer arms like newly scattered glitter. What truly fascinated Aris was the nebula's unique morphology. Most nebulae had irregular cloud-like shapes, or distinct, often violent structures, born from supernova remnants. But this one had a strange, almost intentional flow to it. Long, graceful tendrils of gas and dust spiraled outward from the luminous core, reminiscent of a dancer's swirling skirt or a grand flowing cape. There were pockets of denser, darker dust that formed intricate shadowy patterns contrasting sharply with the bright glowing gases. One particular feature caught her eye repeatedly. Near the central region, a vast iridescent cloud of shimmering gas seemed to rise like a collar catching the light from the powerful young stars within. It had a flamboyant, almost theatrical quality to it. Then further out, two distinct elongated plumes of red-orange gas streamed away from the main body, looking eerily like a pair of outstretched arms. Aris spent hours simply staring at the images, letting her mind wander beyond the cold, hard science. She wasn't just observing a cosmic phenomenon. She felt a profound, almost spiritual connection to it. It was like discovering a hidden masterpiece of art, but one crafted by the universe itself. She imagined the unimaginable forces at play: gravity pulling gas and dust together, nuclear fusion igniting stars, stellar winds shaping the gaseous clouds. It was a cosmic ballet, performed over millions of years. She found herself sketching its contours in her notebook, trying to capture its essence. The scientific papers she wrote were precise, detailed, and groundbreaking. But in her personal notes, she allowed herself a little more poetry. She described it as a cosmic heart, a celestial fountain, a grand opera of starlight. A press release was drafted. The initial findings circulated among the scientific community. The buzz was immediate and immense. News agencies picked up the story, splashing headlines about Dr. Thorne's magnificent nebula across the globe. Aris, usually preferring the quiet solitude of her lab, found herself fielding calls from journalists, giving interviews, and attending virtual conferences. It was overwhelming. But underneath the exhaustion, a deep sense of pride swelled within her. This wasn't just her discovery. It was a window into the raw power and beauty of the universe. And she was the one who had opened that window. But with all the excitement came the inevitable question, the one that every major discovery in astronomy faced. What will you name it? The scientific community had protocols, of course. New General Catalog, NGC, numbers International Astronomical Union, IAU designations. These were important for classification and archival purposes. But for a discovery of this magnitude, one so visually striking and significant a common name was often adopted, a name that would resonate with the public, that would capture its essence, that would endure for centuries. Aris knew. This was her responsibility. She had found it, she had revealed it to the worthy of its splendor. As she continued to stare at the glowing, swirling image of her nebula, she knew it needed more than just a string of letters and numbers. It needed a name that pulsed with life just like the nebula itself. A name that was as unique and unforgettable as the cosmic wonder she had brought to light. The weight of that decision settled heavily on her shoulders, mingling with her profound joy. The pressure to name the nebula began almost immediately. Emails poured in from colleagues, some offering suggestions, others simply asking for an update on the naming process. The university public relations department wanted to coordinate a formal announcement complete with a compelling name. Even her grandmother, bless her heart, called to suggest Sparkle, a name Aris gently deflected. Aris, however, found herself utterly stuck. She went through the traditional ruse. First, astronomical naming conventions often favored mythical figures, constellations, or the names of the discoverers themselves. How about Thorne Nebula? Dr. Carter, a friendly but very traditional colleague, suggested during a coffee break. It's standard practice. You discovered it, Aris. Aris shook her head. No, that feels self-important, and it doesn't capture the essence of it. She gestured vaguely towards the large screen in her office, where a high-resolution image of data, a vibrant, cosmic masterpiece. She considered names from classical mythology. The Phoenix Nebula, for the constant birth and death within its gas. The Orionis Nexus, relating to its spiral arm location. She even toyed with the Stardust Veil or the Cosmic Serpent, but none of them clicked. They felt too generic, too expected, or simply didn't convey the profound, almost flamboyant energy she felt radiating from the nebula. Scientific names were out of the question for public use. While it would definitely get an NGC or IAU designation, something like NGC 8734, or perhaps a more complex string of coordinates, that wasn't a name people would remember or connect with. Imagine trying to write about NGC 8734 in a children's science book, she mused to herself, then sighed. Her whiteboard became a chaotic mess of ideas, crossed out names and question marks. Greek gods, Roman goddesses, constellations, famous astronomers, even obscure elements. Nothing felt right. She wanted a name that was as unique as the nebula itself. A name that carried a certain spark, a legendary quality. She spent her evenings not on data analysis, but on brainstorming. She looked through art books, searching for inspiration in the brushstrokes of master painters. She listened to classical music, hoping a melody would unlock a hidden name. She even tried meditating, clearing her mind to let an idea simply appear, but her mind remained stubbornly blank when it came to a name that truly resonated. The more she thought about it, the more frustrated she became. This nebula was her baby, her magnificent discovery. She felt a deep personal connection to its swirling colors and energetic core. To give it a bland or uninspired name felt like a betrayal. It needs a name that embodies its vibrancy, she muttered one evening, staring at the projected image in her darkened office. Its passion, its sheer, undeniable presence. The nebula's fiery red hues seemed to pulse, its blue tendrils seemed to dance. It wasn't just beautiful. It was captivating, almost demanding attention. It had a stage presence, a certain je ne sais quoi, that made it stand out from all the other countless nebulae in the universe. Aris rubbed her temples. She was exhausted, creatively drained. The initial excitement of the discovery was now slowly being overshadowed by the daunting task of naming it. It felt like trying to capture lightning in a bottle or describe an entire symphony in a single word. She remembered a conversation with her grandmother, who had passed away a few years ago. "Aris, dear," her grandmother used to say, "some things just have that extra spark, that special something. You know it when you see it. It's like a star, honey. It just shines." Her grandmother had a knack for seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary, and a deep appreciation for things that truly shone. Aris sighed, pushing away from her desk. She needed a break. Her brain felt like a tangled mess of cosmic dust and unformed stars. Maybe a change of scenery, a temporary escape from the sterile environment of the observatory, would help clear her head. She decided to go home, make some tea, and try to forget about nebulae and names for a few hours. The universe would still be there when she returned, and hopefully, a brilliant idea would be waiting for her too. King, however, was about to make his appearance totally unexpectedly. Aris's apartment was a cozy, cluttered haven, a stark contrast to the sleek, nice design of the observatory. Bookshelves overflowed with everything from astrophysics, textbooks to classic literature and old sci-fi novels. A worn armchair sat by the window, usually piled with papers and half-read journals. In the corner, almost hidden beneath a stack of old magazines, was an ancient record player, a relic from her grandmother. Her grandmother Evelyn had been a vibrant force of nature. She had loved gardening, baking, and unexpectedly, for an elderly woman, rock and roll. While Aris's parents had preferred classical music and jazz, Grandma Evelyn's house had always hummed with the soulful crooning of Elvis Presley, the raw energy of Chuck Berry, and the rebellious spirit of early rock. Aris often found comfort in the familiar rhythms of her home. Tonight, however, her mind was still buzzing with nebulae and names. She kicked off her shoes, dropped her bag, and walked straight to the kitchen to boil water for tea. The silence of the apartment felt heavy, mirroring her mental block. As the kettle began to whistle, her eyes drifted to the corner where the old record player sat. It had belonged to Evelyn, a beautiful wooden contraption with a rich, warm sound. Aris hadn't played it in years, preferring the convenience of digital music. But tonight, something drew her to it. Perhaps it was the yearning for a simpler time, or just a desperate attempt to break her creative slump. She knelt down, brushing away the magazines, and opened the record cabinet underneath. It was packed with Evelyn's collection, a surprising mix of gospel choirs, country ballads, and of course dozens of Elvis Presley albums. Albums like Blue Hawaii, G.I. Blue, and Elvis is Back were among the worn sleeves. Aris picked up The Sun Sessions, a classic, and traced the album art with her finger. She remembered Evelyn dancing around her living room, a mischievous twinkle in her eye, singing along to "That's All Right" at the top of her lungs. Evelyn had always said Elvis was more than just a singer. He was an event, a phenomenon. He had that sparker, as she'd say. He just lit up the whole room, you know, like a supernova. Aris smiled at the memory. Evelyn always had a flair for the dramatic, especially when it came to Elvis. Without really thinking, Aris pulled out Elvis Golden Records, Volume 3. It was an old favorite of Evelyn's, scratched but still playable. She carefully placed it on the turntable, lowered the needle, and adjusted the volume. A faint crackle filled the air, followed by the familiar, unmistakable strum of a guitar and the smooth, powerful voice of Elvis Presley. "It's now or never" filled the quiet apartment. Aris leaned against the bookshelf, sipping her tea, letting the music wash over her. It wasn't the kind of music she usually listened to, but there was a comfort in its familiarity, a direct link to her beloved grandmother. As the song continued, Aris closed her eyes, letting the melody soothe her frayed nerves. Then, as suspicious minds started, she found herself humming along. She opened her eyes, and her gaze almost instinctively drifted back to the wall where she had projected a large high-resolution image of her newly discovered nebula. Its vibrant reds and blues swirled, its intricate tendrils reached out into the cosmic void, and then it happened. As the iconic brass tro of Burning Love burst forth from the speakers, Aris's eyes snapped wide open. She stared at the nebula, then back at the record player, then at the nebula again. The fiery core of the nebula, its intense red and orange hues, seemed to pulse with the very energy of the song. The shimmering, flamboyant collar of gas she had noticed earlier seemed to flare almost like the collar of one of Elvis's famous jumpsuits. The two long, streaming plumes of gas, were they like the arms of a performer, outstretched in a grand gesture? It was a crazy thought, absurd even. But as Burning Love continued full of passion and raw energy, Aris couldn't shake the feeling. The nebula wasn't just beautiful. It was dynamic, flamboyant, full of life. It demanded attention. It was a star, a cosmic star, burning with intention. Aris walked closer to the projected image, a slow smile spreading across her face. The idea was ridiculous, unorthodox, completely unscientific, and yet it felt so undeniably right. The hum from the past, the melody from Evelyn's old record player, had just sparked an idea more brilliant and unexpected than any theoretical calculation. The naming conundrum wasn't a problem anymore. It was an opportunity. And she knew exactly what she had to do. The idea, once it had taken root, refused to be dislodged. Aris tried to dismiss it. Of course. Elvis and Nebula, she'd muttered to her reflection the next morning. You've been working too hard, Thorne. It sounded insane. Professional astronomers didn't name cosmic wonders after rock and roll legends. They named them after dead scientists, mythological figures, or obscure Latin terms. But every time she looked at the nebula's image, the connection became stronger, not weaker. She pulled up the latest spectroscopic data, showing the incredible temperatures within its core. Burning Love, she thought, and a small smile touched her lips. The sheer energy radiating from the nebula was immense, fiery, powerful, just like Elvis's stage presence. She zoomed in on the collar of gas. She'd noticed it wasn't just a random formation. It was a dense, highly energized region, almost like a halo, but one that flared outwards in a distinct, almost ornate pattern. Aris pictured Elvis in his iconic jumpsuits, the high dramatic colors that became synonymous with his later career. It wasn't an exact match, of course. This was a cosmic cloud, not fabric, but the feeling was there, the flamboyant, show-stopping quality. Then there were the two elongated plumes of gas stretching outwards. They truly did look like arms, perhaps frozen mid-gesture in a cosmic dance. Elvis was known for his dynamic stage movements, his dancing, his way of captivating an audience with every move. This nebula, with its swirling, vibrant colors and energetic formations, seemed to be performing its own silent, grand show across the light years. Aris began to see parallels everywhere. Elvis was the king. This nebula, by its sheer size, brightness, and unique characteristics, felt like the king of newly discovered nebulae in its region. It dominated the surrounding space, radiating an undeniable presence. His music was timeless still, listened to and loved decades after his passing. The nebula, too, was timeless, a cosmic structure that had existed for millions of years and would continue to evolve for millions more, long after humanity was gone. Its light traveling across unimaginable distances was a message from the deep past, just like a classic song that transports you through time. Elvis had a unique, unforgettable voice. The nebula had a unique, unforgettable visual signature. No other nebula she had studied possessed quite the same combination of vibrant colors, intricate structure, and sheer overwhelming scale. It stood out. It was distinct. Aris found herself humming Elvis tunes as she worked, her fingers flying across the keyboard with renewed purpose. Her colleagues noticed her improved mood. Dr. Carter even commented, "You seem unusually cheerful, Aris. Did you finally settle on a name?" Aris just gave a mysterious smile. She wasn't ready to share her outlandish idea. She knew the scientific community valued precision and solemnity. A name like the Elvis Nebula would be met with shock, probably laughter, and certainly a lot of head shaking. She had to be prepared. She had to build an unshakable case, not just based on aesthetics, but on the very spirit of the nebula. She spent hours compiling images, not just raw data, but artists' renditions and enhanced visuals that highlighted the nebula's unique personality. She wrote down all the connections she felt, trying to translate her intuition into logical arguments. Brightness and star power. Its luminosity rivaled that of the most famous nebulae, a true star among comet clouds. Unique morphology, the distinct collar and arms, reminiscent of a showman's flair. Energetic core, the burning love of its stellar formation, its raw, passionate energy. King status, its unprecedented size and grandeur in its discovered region. Timeless appeal, its ancient existence, its enduring beauty. Much like classic music, the more she articulated these points, the less crazy the idea seemed. In fact, it started to feel ingenious. It wasn't just a whimsical choice. It was a deeply symbolic one, connecting the raw, vibrant power of the cosmos with the equally vibrant, unforgettable energy of her full vibe. And it captured the essence of her magnificent discovery in a way that NGC 8734 never could. She took a deep breath, gathered her research, and prepared for the battle of a lifetime. The scientific world was about to get a little bit of rock and roll. The day of the formal naming committee meeting arrived. Aris had been invited to present her proposed name and justification. The committee consisted of 5 senior astrophysicists and 1 representative from the university's public relations department. Among them was Dr. Ben Carter, known for his rigorous scientific approach and his tendency to favor traditional nomenclature. Aris walked into the conference room, a thick binder under her arm, her heart thumping a nervous rhythm against her ribs. The room was well lit, the air smelling faintly of stale coffee. A large screen at the front displayed the standard placeholder image for her presentation, the stunning swirling vista of the newly discovered nebula. Dr. Eleanor Vance, the head of the committee, nodded kindly. "Thank you for joining us, Dr. Thorne. We're all incredibly excited about your discovery. It's truly magnificent. Now, we understand you have a proposed name for our consideration." Aris took a deep breath. This was it. She placed her binder on the table, opened it and straightened the first page. She had practiced her presentation countless times, refining every word. "Yes, Dr. Vance, I do." Aris clicked a button on her remote. The nebula image shifted slightly, zooming in on its fiery core. As you know, this nebula is unprecedented in its scale and unique morphology. Its core burns with incredible intensity, a stellar nursery producing new stars at a breathtaking rate. Its tendrils of gas stretch outwards, creating an almost theatrical display. She paused, looking directly at Dr. Carter, who was already leaning forward, a quizzical look on his face. "I believe," Aris continued, her voice gaining strength, "that this nebula deserves a name that reflects its immense presence, its vibrant energy, its unforgettable character, a name that captures its star power. If you will." Another click, the image on the screen changed. It was still the nebula, but now overlaid with a subtle, almost ghostly outline, an outline that if you squinted just right, if you let your imagination take hold, seemed to resemble a stylized profile. A profile with a distinctive coif and a high collar. A ripple went through the room. Therefore, I propose we name this magnificent celestial body the Elvis Nebula. Silence, deep, profound silence. Then a faint chuckle from the PR representative quickly stifled. Dr. Vance's expression remained neutral, but her gaze was sharp, analytical. Dr. Carter, however, could not hide his reaction. He leaned back in his chair, a slow, disbelieving smile spreading across his face. Elvis, he managed, the word edged with incredulity, as in Presley the singer. Aris nodded undeterred her. Dr. Thorne, Dr. Vance began, her voice calm but firm. While we appreciate creativity, this is an unconventional suggestion. Perhaps you could elaborate on your reasoning. I'd be delighted, Aris replied, her heart still hammering, but a sense of determination now eclipsing her nerves. She clicked to the next slide, which showed side-by-side comparisons, a close-up of the nebula's fiery dynamic core, next to a picture of Elvis on stage, sweat glistening. Consider its core, Aris began, pointing to the nebula. It's a cauldron of creation, a burning love of nuclear fusion, constantly birthing new stars with incredible power and intensity, just as Elvis ignited his audiences with his passion and charisma. She clicked again. The image shifted to the flamboyant collar-like formation of gas within the nebula, paired with a famous photo of Elvis in one of his signature high-collared jumpsuits. Observe the unique morphology, she continued. The way the gas forms this distinct, almost theatrical collar, and the two large plumes reaching out almost like arms in a dramatic pose, this nebula doesn't just exist, it performs. It has a stage presence. Dr. Carter cleared his throat. Dr. Thorne, with all due respect, are you suggesting this is anything more than pareidolia, seeing familiar patterns where none exist? On the contrary, Dr. Carter, Aris countered, meeting his gaze evenly. It is legendary, and like his music, its beauty is timeless. She took a deep breath, naming it the Elvis Nebula. Isn't just a quirky choice, both cosmic and cultural, that embodies power, vibrancy. The atmosphere in the room was thick with unspoken questions. Aris had thrown a curveball, and the committee members were reeling. Dr. Vance, ever the diplomat, spoke first. Dr. Thorne, your passion is evident, and your visual correlations are certainly striking. However, astronomical naming conventions are largely based. And what about the precedent? Added Dr. Chin, a stern-faced senior astronomer. If we start naming nebulae after pop culture figures, where does it end? Will we have the Taylor Swift galaxy next? The Beyonce black hole? A few snickers rippled through the room. Aris held her ground. And I believe the nebula's character genuinely aligns with his persona in a way that transcends mere superficial resemblance. Dr. Carter, still looking a mix of amused and serious, chimed in. Aris, I understand your sentiment. This nebula is in Dedevi. And Dedubula. This Strikontigas. But science thrives on precision and impartiality. Dr. Carter, is the universe not whimsical? Are its creations not often astonishing? This isn't trivialization. It's a trivialization. It's a selami. She clicked to a new slide, displaying a detailed spectrograph of the nebula's core, showing extreme temperatures and highly energetic particle emissions. Look at this, she urged. This isn't a gentle cloud. This is a furnace, a powerhouse, a roaring engine of creation. It's burning with life, with energy, just like Elvis's performances burned with passion. She then showed another image, highlighting the intricate, almost rhythmic swirling patterns of gas and dust. And the dynamic motion within it, she continued. The way the stellar winds carve pathways, the way new stars burst forth. It's a cosmic dance, a constant, vibrant rhythm, a rock and roll of cosmic forces. Are we to assume, then, Dr. Chen interjected, a hint of sarcasm in his voice, that this nebula will make us all shook up? Aris didn't flinch. Perhaps it will, Dr. Chen, for those who truly look at it and appreciate its incredible energy. Imagine the headlines, "Astronomers discover the Elvis Nebula." It's now or never to explore the cosmos. More, the king of nebulae has arrived. These names aren't just for us. They're for the public. They inspire. They capture imagination. They make Sami nature. The PR representative, who'd been quietly observing, finally spoke up, a thoughtful expression on her face. Dr. Thorne makes a point from a public engagement perspective. The Elvis Nebula is incredibly strong. It's memorable, instantly recognizable, and generates contradictory. While the scientists valued scientific rigor, the university also needed public support and funding. The idea of widespread public interest was appealing. Dr. Vance rubbed her chin. Dr. Thorne, are you truly suggesting that this name is as scientifically valid as, say, the Perseus Arm Cloud Complex, the second? Scientifically valid for classification, no, Aris conceded, but scientifically valid for fostering wonder and encouraging public engagement? Absolutely. Science is not just about data. It's about discovery, inspiration. A name that embodies the nebula's unique character, even if it's unconventional, achieves that goal. She looked at each committee member in turn, her gaze unwavering. We call the Horsehead Nebula the Horsehead Nebula. We call the Crab Nebula the Crab Nebula because it looks like a crab. My proposal simply takes that concept a step further by connecting the visual spectacle and dynamic nature of this nebula to a legendary figure whose very presence sipped here, whose very precium. The room fell silent once more, but this time it was a different kind of silence. It was the silence of consideration, of minds slowly opening to a new possibility. Aris had presented her case, not just with data, but with passion and a compelling narrative. The raw, beautiful image of the nebula glowed on the screen behind her, silently making its own case. Its vibrant colors almost daring them to call it anything less than legendary. Aris felt a subtle shift in the room's energy. The initial shock and skepticism were beginning to give way to curiosity, perhaps even reluctant admiration. She pressed her advantage. Let's put aside the name Elvis for a moment, Aris proposed, and simply consider the qualities I'm trying to capture. This nebula is undeniably vibrant. It's dynamic. It has a powerful, almost magnetic presence. It's visually striking, unforgettable. She clicked to a new slide, which was a time-lapse simulation of the nebula's evolution over thousands of years, showing the incredibly fluid dancing movements of the gas and dust. Observe its natural rhythm, Aris narrated, her voice clear and resonant. Constant flow of stellar winds, the birth pangs of new stars. It's a performance of cosmic forces, a ballet on a grand scale. It's not static. It's alive, constantly shifting, captivating. She paused the simulation on a particularly dramatic frame, where a burst of new light erupted from the core, sending ripples through the surrounding gas, making the collar feature flare brilliantly. Look at this eruption, she continued, her voice full of wonder. Not just a scientific event. It's a spectacle, like a crescendo in a magnificent piece of music, or a powerful, iconic moment in a performance. It's dramatic. It's a bait. Dr. Carter leaned forward again, but this time his expression was less critical and more thoughtful. You're drawing analogies between the nebula's dynamic processes and the energy of a performer. It's certainly a novel approach, "It's more than analogy, Dr. Carter," Aris said, her eyes shining with conviction. "It's about the emotional resonance when people see this nebula. Wonder, a sense of vastness, just as great art or great music evokes profound feeling. Elvis Presley's music did the tasses." She continued to show images, each one highlighting a different aspect that she felt connected to the Elvis essence. A wide shot showing its dominant size compared to surrounding starfields, the King's Domain. A shot of its deep, mysterious, shadowed regions, the enigmatic allure. Close-up of a particularly bright, blue-white young star within its heart. A star is born. "Consider the Horsehead Nebula," Aris stated, pivoting slightly. "It doesn't look exactly like a horse's head in every detail, but the name is evocative. It gives people an image, a connection. My proposal takes that a step further. It gives this nebula not just a visual connection, but an evil, poor, If I may, Dr. Vance, Dr. Thorne's argument for public engagement is compelling. Imagine the headlines, the educational opportunities, the Elvis Nebula, a cosmic love song. It creates an immediate, accessible narrative that can draw more people into astronomy. It makes the universe less abstract, more relatable." Dr. Chen, who had been scribbling notes, finally looked up. "I admit the public relations aspect is significant, and your explanation of the nebula's performance does give a certain theatrical quality to it, I suppose." He still looked unconvinced, but the sharp edge of his disbelief had softened. Dr. Vance exchanged a long look with Dr. Carter. Aris waited, her heart in her throat. She had poured her passion, her scientific understanding, and her personal connection into this presentation. She had laid bare her unconventional reasoning. Finally, Dr. Carter spoke. "I confess the thought of the Beyoncé black hole is less appealing than the Elvis Nebula." After seeing your detailed correlations, he even managed a slight smile. The others nodded, some with hesitant smiles. Aris felt a surge of hope. She had presented a story of a magnificent cosmic entity that to her eyes resonated with the powerful, unforgettable presence of the king. A little less conversation, Aris thought, looking at the silent, majestic image of the nebula. A little more nebula. And it seemed finally they were beginning to see it too. A week later, Aris received an official email from Dr. Vance. The subject line simply read, "Decision, Nebula Naming." Aris's hands trembled slightly as she clicked it open. The first paragraph confirmed her fears. The committee had indeed deliberated at length, weighed the pros and cons, and considered all the scientific precedents. Her heart sank. But then she scrolled down. Well, unconventional Dr. Thorne's comprehensive presentation and compelling justification for the Namus Nebula. Altern de nebula stepula porta nebula. The on de nebulant. Enetic abos beidis tepideclination. A wave of euphoria washed over her so intense it made her lightheaded. She reread the email twice just to be sure it was real. They had said yes. The Elvis Nebula news of the naming spread like wildfire. The initial announcement by the university was met with a mixture of shock, amusement, and overwhelming enthusiasm from the public. Scientific journals ran articles debating the merits of such a choice, but many acknowledged the creativity and the potential for drawing new audiences to astronomy. The media, as the PR representative had predicted, went wild. News channels featured the story, showing stunning images of the nebula alongside clips of Elvis in his prime. "King of Rock meets the King of Nebulae," declared one headline. "It's now or never to see the Elvis Nebula," screamed another. Aris found herself doing more interviews than ever before, but this time the questions were different. They weren't just about the scientific data. They were about the why Elvis? And Aris, feeling more comfortable and confident now that the name was official, explained her reasoning with passion and clarity. She spoke of the nebula's burning love core, its flamboyant tendrils, its legendary presence, She talked about how science and art could intertwine, how inspiration could come from unexpected places. The public loved it. People who had never paid attention to astronomy were suddenly curious about the Elvis Nebula. Telescopes in observatories around the world turned their gaze towards the Perseus Arm. Amateur astronomers shared their own images and interpretations, some even drawing cosmic Elvis profiles around the nebula. Universities and planetariums began incorporating the Elvis Nebula into their educational programs. Children's books about space included beautiful illustrations of the vibrant nebula, complete with little thought bubbles asking, "Do you hear rock and roll?" Even Dr. Carter, who had initially been the most skeptical, approached Aris a few weeks later. Aris said, a genuine smile on his face, "I have to admit you were right, my niece, before is now obsessed with the Elvis Nebula. She wants to be an astrophysicist when she grows up. She says she wants to discover the Beyoncé black hole." He chuckled. "You've done something remarkable. Aris, you've made the universe a little more human, a little more relatable." Aris felt a warmth spread through her chest. This was what it was about. Not just the discovery, but the shared wonder. She received fan mail, real physical letters from people thanking her for the name, telling her how it had made them smile, how it reminded them of their own loved ones who adored Elvis. One letter from an elderly woman simply said, "My late husband loved Elvis, and he loved stars. This brings them both together. Thank you for this beautiful gift." Aris kept that letter. It validated everything. It was a bridge between the vast, incomprehensible cosmos and the deeply personal, emotional experience of human culture. The Elvis Nebula wasn't just a scientific anomaly anymore. It was a cultural touchstone. It was a reminder that beauty, power, and legend could exist in the most unexpected places, from a Memphis stage to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. And Aris, the quiet genius, had found a way to connect them all. Months passed, and the fame of the Elvis Nebula only grew. It became a favorite target for both professional observatories and backyard astronomers alike. Its vibrant, almost glowing image-graced magazine covers, television documentaries, and countless online articles. The Elvis Nebula was now firmly etched into the public consciousness, a testament to Aris's unique vision. For Aris herself, life had certainly changed. She was no longer just the brilliant, reclusive astrophysicist. She was Dr. Thorne, who named the Elvis Nebula. Her discovery and its unconventional name had catapulted her into a new kind of spotlight. She handled it with grace, always steering conversations back to the science, but never shying away from the heart-warming story behind the name. One quiet evening, Aris found herself back in her apartment, the same old record player humming gently in the corner. She had intentionally chosen a different Elvis album tonight, Moody Blue, one of his later, more introspective works. As the opening chords of Unchained Melody filled the room, Aris sat in her worn armchair, a mug of chamomile tea in her hands. On the wall opposite her, the Elvis Nebula glowed softly from her projector. It had become a permanent fixture in her living space, a constant reminder of her triumph. She looked at its swirling reds and blues, its ethereal tendrils, its fiery heart. She didn't just see gas and dust and light years anymore. She saw a cosmic dance, a timeless performance, a silent serenade across the void. She thought of her grandmother, Evelyn, how Evelyn would have absolutely adored. She would have bragged to all her friends, probably even called the observatory herself to talk about Aris's star. Aris could almost hear Evelyn's infectious laugh, could almost feel her warm, comforting presence in the room. "You had that spark, Aris," she imagined Evelyn saying, "just like the king." and just like that beautiful star you found." A peaceful smile touched Aris's lips. The initial worry that she might have compromised her scientific credibility had long since faded. Instead, she felt a profound sense of rightness. She hadn't just named a nebula, she had given it a story, a personality, a connection to the human experience. She had shown that science didn't have to be cold and clinical. It could be infused with passion, memory, and a touch of cosmic whimsy. The melody of "Can't Help Falling in Love" began to play. Elvis's voice, soft and tender Aris, closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her, she imagined. The light from the Elvis Nebula, traveling for thousands of years, finally reaching Earth, telling its ancient burning story. And she thought of the light from Elvis's star, the impact of his music still reaching across generations. Touching hearts, it was fitting. Indeed, the nebula was a star-forming region, a birthplace of new light. Elvis was a star, a source of incredible light and energy, who inspired millions. Both were monumental, unforgettable, and full of a burning passion that transcended time and space. Aris opened her eyes and looked at the nebula one last time that night. It wasn't just a scientific object anymore. It was a tribute, a memory, a bridge between the vastness of the universe and the warmth of human connection. It was a reminder that even in the cold, dark depths of space, there could be burning love. And as Aris drifted off to sleep, the faint, comforting cadence of Elvis's voice filled her dreams. A starlight serenade from the heart of the cosmos,